Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television. Our major stories tonight: Cabrali B, PCR and presidential candidates frowns at the attitudes of some government ministers who are using their positions to brutalize his militants. He reveals that some of his militants were recently arrested and detained in Ayos, and others were assaulted in the Jan Lobo division. In a strongly worded statement, he vowed to take a tough approach, warning of retaliation if his militants continue to be intimidated. And also, the Social Democratic Front SDF party says it will publish results of the Sunday, October 12 presidential election on the same day, at least at 10 p.m. In a press release, SDF party campaign manager Professor Louis-Marie Kegder stated that the party has representatives in all polling stations in Cameroon who will channel instant results to their data center to be compiled and published. Those are major stories tonight. The news in full in a jiffy. Once more, good evening, and thank you so much for choosing Equinoxe Television. For presentation, I am Immaculate Fogwe. Mobile money operators in Cameroon are sounding the alarm, citing challenges that are strangling their businesses: high fees for money transfers, poor network connectivity, and low commissions, and equally expensive data charges. These complaints were presented to officials of the mobile network distribution company in the course of a meeting in Douala that brought together trade unionists and other partners of the sector. A breakdown of their concerns in this report done by Malaglory.
Mobile money operators in the city of Douala have raised a number of challenges they face in carrying out their businesses. According to them, they receive SMS late after each transaction, and customers complain of high costs of transfer and withdrawal charges that the clients sometimes end up withdrawing the money in part, thus making the efforts unprofitable.
Donc ils prennent cette commission-là chez le client final, mais nous qui sommes point de vente, qui leur permet d'avoir cet argent, ils ne nous donnent pratiquement rien.
The business persons raised these worries in Douala during a meeting bringing together mobile money operators, trade unionists and other partners.
MTN va nous dire que 500 francs donne 1 giga. Après quelques
customers, after subscribing to a particular bundle, sometimes return with complaints that their bundle expired without them using it, making the relationship with customers tense and lack of confidence. In fact, internet connection is very expensive in Cameroon.
Quand on fait un dépôt à un client, le message ne vient pas.
Sometimes after a particular transaction, the message delays in popping into our phones. When this happens, we are forced to refund the money.
Et après le message vient.
The president of the Trade Union Association presented other worries.
Un client se fait voler son téléphone.
A person's phone can be stolen and money is withdrawn from the phone, yet the mobile money operator is arrested. Are we supposed to collect receipts of every phone before carrying out any transaction? Shortage of commissions is another problem. Sometimes our SIMs are blocked with a capital inside, without prior notifications. Contracts signed sometimes without giving us a copy. However, the representative from the mobile money network company promised that measures are being taken to address the situation. We have heard their worries and have put in place mechanisms to better the situation, especially those that have been attacked. Mobile money operators as well as Cameroonians continue to complain on the poor network, high cost of money transfer charges, and expensive data connection in Cameroon.
And now in health, ophthalmologists are expressing concerns about an increased rate of eye diseases in Cameroon affecting mostly young people. They say this surge is as a result of late diagnosis of vision conditions like myopia and glaucoma, which leads to blindness. The eye doctors were speaking today at Acha Eye Hospital here in the city of Douala on the occasion of World Sight Day observed each year on October 9, which is today. Ese Lucilengu was there and now reports.
It's known as a silent thief of the sight. With no noticeable signs or symptoms, glaucoma is the leading cause of eye disease that affects youth and adults in Cameroon.
It's just about some 3 years that I discovered it. The glaucoma did not have any pains. You always sit like this and just begin to see your eyes going. You don't even know the day it comes. It comes very gradually and kills you.
Just like this patient, thousands of Cameroonians suffer from glaucoma and other eye diseases that affect parts of the eye.
The most common problems that we are seeing today is refractive error. We have glaucoma, we have cataracts. There are warning signs for even the refractive errors, like you are unable to see clearly. They come with headache. Yes, they call it nerve pains.
At the Acha Eye Hospital in Douala, ophthalmologists say the increased use of digital screens like phones and computers has led to a high prevalence rate.
With increasing technology, we are seeing that our youths are getting more affected with refractive error, like myopia, that is on an increase.
Digital eye syndrome is quite a common pathology now in our society, and most persons need to be able to understand that it is due to the use of their digital devices that they get all the headaches, they get all the eye fatigue.
Dr. Awum Joyce further says some diseases can also cause vision problems.
When you already have persons in your family, for example, who are suffering from the same pathology, or you are a diabetic patient, hypertensive patient, or one who is short-sighted, it's important to go to take advantage of free screening so that we can have you diagnosed early enough.
To curb cataracts, glaucoma, or vision disorders, Cameroon joins the international community each year on October 9 to observe the World Sight Day. On the occasion of the World Sight Day, a screening campaign was organized at the Acha Eye Hospital to emphasize on the need of regular screening.
When we talk of things like glaucoma, for example, you need to take advantage of screening like this in order to be diagnosed early, because most of the time, patients who arrive here on a very late stage, not knowing that this is a kind of a disease that can cause irreversible blindness.
Ophthalmologists also call on parents to pay attention to their children's sight.
So we also want to encourage the society that when your children have any eye problem, or you notice anything particular in the child's eye, whether it's a spot, a white spot, for example, leading to a cancer in children, or whether it's a child's eye deviating, it's very important not to neglect it.
The 2025 World Sight Day is observed under the theme, Love Your Eyes.
Asia Lucilengu reporting there. Now we talk politics. Prime Minister Chief Dr. Joseph Dion-Gute has inaugurated the newly constructed grandstand in Kumba during his visit to the city on Wednesday. This event coincided with his inspection of various ongoing and completed projects in that area. The visit aimed to assess the current state of development initiatives and their impact on the local community, as Rex Afon reports from that part of the country.
Prime Minister Joseph Dion-Gute is back in Kumba, the place of his birth. He has been warmly received by local authorities and a cross-section of militants of the CPDM.
On behalf of the people of Kumba, the Green City, your city, it is my singular honor to extend to you, Your Excellency, a very warm and heartfelt welcome.
During his stay in the city, he presided over the official opening of the newly constructed grandstand. He seized the opportunity to call on the people of Kumba to lay aside their political beliefs and affiliations and rally behind Paul Biya.
And I know one say, we talk, say, me, I be SDF, me, I be UNDP, me, I be, no. That time for SDF and UNDP, it will come. No be true, no be now, eh? Will I hear so? That time, I was time for municipal and legislative election. This one is for presidential election. Now, two way good for Kumba, now it good for Kumba. Two way good for Kumba, now it good for we. And President Biya, now it is for city. Now it good for Kumba.
During his stay within the city of Kumba, fondly called the Green City, Prime Minister Joseph Dion-Gute also visited some projects around Ntoko and Cameroon streets.
Still in politics, the presidential candidate for the Cameroonian Party for National Reconciliation has frowned at the attitudes of some government officials who are using their positions to brutalize his militants. In two separate publications on his Facebook page, Cabralibi says he is fed up with the threats and intimidation while promising to face off with the officials if they continue with their intimidating attitudes. Smajikan Gabriel has more.
This to the end of the presidential campaigns, the candidate for the Cameroon Party for National Reconciliation, PCRN, is having tough times with government officials on the field. According to a post on his Facebook page, Cabralibi says, "I just heard the unacceptable remarks made by the mayor of Akonolinga, Pierre George Akamba, against the president of Akonolinga PCRN Communal Committee head, Comrade Marshal Esuma. My God, what violence! I'm going to crush you violently. I'm going to remove you from all projects. I'm going to send machineries to raise away your nursery. Mr. Mayor, it will be a blow for a blow." The PCRN candidate for the presidential elections is also furious about the treatment given to some of his comrades. If the CPDM doesn't stop its dogs, it will be held responsible for any widespread violence. When a Paul Biya poster was torn somewhere, all remarks started flowing in disorder manner. My activists have just spent a week in jail in Ayos on ministerial instructions. My campaign teams are receiving threats of death and destruction from everywhere in Jan Lobo. They are systematically assaulted and stripped naked. Our posters are vandalized. Stop in any case. Dear comrades, it's now a blow for a blow since these thieves want to push us to the limit. Let's go. Notwithstanding the hindrance on the field, Cabralibi had a stopover in Bangasina, where he continued his campaign. He promised better living conditions to the inhabitants if he is voted to occupy the chair in Etudi after October 12, 2025. Cabralibi ends his campaign ahead of the elections come Saturday, October 11, 2025 in Yaoundé.
Now to one of our major lead stories. The SDF says it will publish results of the Sunday 12 October presidential election on the same day at least 10 p.m. In a press release, the SDF party campaign manager, Professor Louis-Marie Kirkder, says the party has representatives in all polling stations in Cameroon who will channel instant results to their data center to be compiled and published latest 10 p.m. Femi Armstrong Sanda is the man on that story.
The Social Democratic Front SDF party is confident that the complete results of the election will be available and ready by latest 10 p.m. on Sunday, October 12, 2025. In a press release addressed to all SDF party representatives in polling stations across Cameroon, Louis-Marie Kirkder, the party's second vice president and campaign manager for OC Joshua, asked his polling agent to remain vigilant and ensure that all results are compiled and transmitted to the party's headquarters before 8 p.m. on the election day. According to Louis-Marie Kirkder, the SDF party has deployed some 31,670 polling agents who will be present in every polling station across Cameroon to safeguard the vote of Cameroonians and ensure transparency in the process. With this extensive network, the party says it will be able to collect, verify and publish election results even before Elections Cameroon Elecam announces them. The SDF party moved forward in line with long-standing concerns raised by the opposition in Cameroon vis-à-vis the transparency and credibility of election results published by the elections governing body in the country, Elecam.
And Cameroonian opposition leader and presidential candidate Issa Chuma Bakari has questioned President Paul Biya's capacity to lead the country for another term, citing concerns over the president's ability to be effectively advised and respected. Speaking at the campaign rally in Mokolo, Chiruma urged the Constitutional Council to prioritize the will of Cameroonians who are seeking change after nearly 4 decades under the current regime. A grand report from Innocent Aze.
Issa Chiroma Bakari remains one of the top crowd-pulling candidates in the ongoing campaign of the 12 contenders to grab the keys of the Unity Palace in the October 12 polls. While in Mokolo, in the Mayo Tanaga division of the Far North region on Wednesday, the leader of the Cameroon National Salvation Front Party and his team barely managed to drive in a large crowd of supporters without running over any. The jubilating supporters blocked the roads to have enough from candidate Issa Chiroma Bakari. They all crowned him already as president, not of the CNSF party, but of the Republic of Cameroon. Change through a transition is all they desire in this part of Cameroon. Candidate Issa is convinced he will be the next president of the Republic of Cameroon. Speaking to journalists, he said incumbent President Paul Biya is no longer legitimate and is unwanted by the people. He called on the Constitutional Council to stop paying allegiance to the 92-year-old president, but to the tired people who yearn for absolute change through one man, Chiroma, capable of reuniting Cameroonians, reconstruct the nation with the participation of all. As a former collaborator of the head of state, Issa Chiroma Bakari reveals to his former boss that Cameroonians and even his collaborators no longer respect and listen to him. Force should give way for the next president. He adds, President Paul Biya at the moment does not have the possibilities and capacities to serve Cameroonians for another mandate. The crowd puller enjoined the electorate to vote massively for the CNSF come October 12 and be present to protect their votes to avoid them being stolen.
And we stay in politics as presidential candidates take the last bend of the campaign period. Beloba Maigari's campaign caravan went around Yaoundé today. On foot, in vehicles and motorbikes, the supporters of Beloba went wooing voters for their champion. Babila Jonathan reports from Yaoundé.
They are canvassing for votes for Beloba Maigari, presidential candidate of the National Union for Democracy and Progress, NUDP. From one part of the nation's capital to another, the militants, supporters, and sympathizers of the NUDP are telling residents of Yaoundé and all other persons to choose the green ballot paper. While brandishing the pictures of Beloba Maigari, they are saying he is the one who will change their living conditions. Beloba is referred to as the third president of Cameroon.
That report ends this first part of the news. Talking Point comes up next. My guest tonight on Talking Point is Professor Elvis NGOLE, political scientist and equally a militant of the CPDM party. Good evening. It's a pleasure to have you on Talking Point tonight, Prof.
Thank you, Immaculate, for giving me the opportunity once again to be on your prestigious program. And, the pleasure is shared.
Assessment of campaigns so far, beginning with your political party. We are just left with barely 48 hours to the end of campaigns.
Yes, so far I think the campaigns have started very well, and all the 12 candidates, or 12 representing 12 political parties, are going about freely, carrying out their campaign activities. I'm honored, and it's a pleasure for me to be one of the campaign managers for the CPDM candidate, President Paul Biya, for which I head the campaign committee for Kupe Maninguba division, and at the same time I'm one of the vice presidents of the electoral litigation and the vote counting subcommittee at the level of the national coordination. So far, I've seen that the campaign is characterized by freedom. The campaign is characterized by a lot of creativity and a lot of anxiety. And I think that's good for our democracy, but it's also good for our country. And I think that a lot of the candidates respect the electoral code. They understand what the code of conduct is. And I'm very glad that our candidate, President Paul Biya, as everyone knows, is one of those candidates who respects the law, respects the code of conduct. And so far, as you've known, he's begun himself in the field. He was the other day in Marwa, and it was a successful outing, successful campaign rally. And as you could tell, the great population of the far north, in fact, the Grand North, received him very warmly. And I think that augurs well for the campaign. It's a good spirit.
You claim the campaign is characterized by freedom, whereas we know that some candidates have faced some obstructions on the ground which hinder their militants from carrying out their activities smoothly. A clear example is that of militants of the Social Democratic Front SDF party in Mundemba who are arrested for posting campaign posters in some places in that part of the country. Another case, as we just saw in this news, was the case of militants of Cabralibi's PCRN party who are equally intimidated by those he calls as members of the government. Is this not a serious threat to the democratic process?
Well, as far as we know, everyone who President Biya, as a serious leader, as a visionary leader, as somebody who is very philosophical, has brought back democracy, has brought democracy back to Cameroon, and he's serious about it. That's his commitment. And wherever and whenever any candidate or any citizen or any group or any association has problems exercising their freedom, because we're in a state of law, they should feel free and present their case to either judicial authorities or any other authorities, and that will be taken care of. We believe in the rule of law, and the rule of law means that there are institutions in place that are there to dispense justice and to act on behalf of the law or in the name of the law. So what I see is that all the 12 candidates, whoever they may be, they are doing a great job moving about. But of course, in specific locations or cases, there might be a problem here and there, in which case we should encourage everyone to use the law to make sure that you get your right respected. As far as the CPDM is concerned, as a Republican party, as a party that was put in place, created by President Biya to promote democracy, we still believe in democracy, and democracy cannot be complete or cannot be successful if everyone doesn't count or if others are not there to make counter arguments, to debate, and so forth. So whoever has problems, whoever they may be, whatever party they may belong to, they should feel free to present their case before judiciary authorities or before any administrative or legal authorities, and their rights will be not only granted, but will be preserved and respected.
Prof, from an honest point of view, was President Paul Biya's campaign rally in Mara truly a success, considering the focus on repeated promises rather than new initiatives? Critics argue that the event was overshadowed by past unfulfilled commitments and a perceived lack of substance, same as the speech of the Speaker at the National Assembly, which has been described by some newspapers as a distraction. What are your thoughts on this matter?
Well, first, it was a success from the standpoint of the fact that the far north as you know, in terms of electoral weight, constitutes the second largest concentration of electoral votes, about 16 or 16% of the electoral vote, 1.3, 1.4 million voters. And if you take the whole Grand North, the far north constitutes about 50% of the, if not a little higher, of the vote of the Grand North. So the fact that the president chose to make his first outing there is significant, is correct politically, is logical, and is rational. And the fact that no other political candidate, no other candidate has been able to amass that and mobilize that size of a crowd in the far north. So far, you have to say that it was successful, and we all saw the people of the far north, and in the Grand North in general, they were warm to the president. They were very welcoming, and it was a heartfelt welcome. And the president, as he reminded them in his speech, he feels at home in the far north. After all, we shouldn't forget that in terms of history, in terms of psychology, in terms of our political evolution, the far north, as they say, is the eldest child of the New Deal, President Biya, and it is actually, like you can say, an enfant chéri, because the far north is a creation of President Biya, and I think the people of the far north are a people of integrity, people of faith, and I think they are endeared to the president, and the president is endeared to them, and so we saw the welcome. So far, no other candidate has been able to amass that amount of that size of a population in the far north. Well, we still have about, as you say, 48 or so hours. Let us see which, if another candidate out of the 12 will be able to amass that amount of that size of a population as we saw the president do in Marwa.
Now let's look at another aspect. We saw in the images circulating on social media pointing out some persons who came in a crowd having belts that were military belts. They showed their caps that they kept somewhere. What do you know about allegations of military officers transformed into civilian campaign population?
Well, military officers, I'm one of those who respects our military officers and our security forces. They are doing a great job being military officers or being security forces. I don't think they have any interest in pretending to be or to look like civilian military militants. They don't have to, because they are already doing a great job as military officials and military officers. But, you know, we live in a free society. People are free to dress any way they want. And I suspect that sometimes you see some civilians, even they enjoy dressing up in military wear. And if military officers at some point or on an occasion feel like dressing up like civilians, they are free to do so. But that doesn't change anything. We know that militants are militants, sympathizers and sympathizers. And they come from all walks of life, and they are in all shapes and in all colors. But to say that in a campaign outing, in a campaign rally, such as was the case in Marwa, and as successful as that the mobilization was, the military officers did not have any interest, and they didn't have to be. And I'm not sure that these were military officers. But if there were some civilians who felt like dressing up like military officials, of course, we are free to do so. But if there are some military officials who felt like dressing up like civilians, we are in a free society, and the rule of law exists. If you don't break any law, I think you are free to exercise. But to say that military officials, for the purposes of a campaign rally, will want to look like militants, they have no interest, because they are already doing a good job as military officials.
Did the president succeed to turn the tides that seem to be tittling to some major opposition candidates at the moment?
Yes, I think, first of all, the outing, the mobilization, the welcome was a successful one. And if you take it that the CPDM already has a record in the far north, and in particular and in general in the Grand North, because if you take just the far north, which is 1.3 or 1.4 million electorate, that which represents about 16% of the total share of the national electorate of 8.2 million. And if you take the far north and regroup it as the Grand North, it constitutes about 50%, or a little more than 50% of the electorate, because the electorate of the Grand North is about 33%, and the far north is about half of that. And so, if you look at the record, at the level of the municipal councils, at the level of the regional councils, at the level of the legislatures, at the level of the Senate, at the level of the National Assembly, the CPDM commands, the majority commands, has a commanding majority of the seats. So far, the president is, the success of the president's meeting or grand rally in the far north signals or demonstrates the power, the strength, and the hegemony of the CPDM in the far north and in the Grand North in general. And so far, the size of the welcome and the mobilization, it shows that that record will be maintained, if not even surpassed. And until the others can prove otherwise, if you take the others that you have mentioned, if you take, for example, the case of the former allies of the CPDM, meaning Minister of State Buba Bello, Maigari, and Minister Chiruma, they are both from one region, of the North region. The North region constitutes somewhere around, I think, 8 or 9 or 10% of the electorate. It's nothing compared to the far north. And the fact that the two will come from the same region, the most likely scenario is that they themselves will split the vote in the north region where they come from. But even there in the north region, as you know, the CPDM has a commanding lead as far as, and hegemony as far as municipal councillors or mayors, regional councillors, legislators, meaning parliamentarians, senators. The CPDM has a commanding lead. So, the fact that the two come from the same region does not help the two of them, but that does not pose any danger to the CPDM either, because the CPDM will maintain its hegemony, its strength, its force. If you pit candidate President Paul Biya and the others who come from that region of the Grand North, candidate Paul Biya will do much better, as he has done in the past, in 2025.
What about unfulfilled promises and the precarious living conditions of these people living in the far north regions of Cameroon? These are cannot continue to live in these precarious conditions. What you need now?
Campaigns for anyone who is a candidate, or even for those who are campaign agents like we are, campaigns are actually promises, and because the promises have to be translated into public policies, formal policies. And so far, it's normal. I'm sure if you ask all the other candidates, what they're doing in the campaign is making promises, which is normal. But the difference between the other 11 candidates and President Biya is that President Biya has actually translated some of his promises, if not all of his promises, into effective, deliberate public policies. And these public policies we see. If you take, for example, right now as we're talking, very serious, heavy works are going on in terms of construction of the roads, construction of bridges, infrastructures in the Grand North in general and in the far north in particular right now. And these works are to the tune of billions and billions. That is going on right now in the far north and in other parts of the Grand North. As you know, there is an existing presidential plan for the reconstruction of that area because of the problems security problems that have been attendant to that area. You remember President Biya took a decree declaring the area of the far north as as a disaster zone. And that comes with it lots of funding into the tune of billions and billions being flowing into this zone or into this region. These are deliberate policies, which obviously some are on course, some are going to bear fruit. But to say that campaigns are just promises, but that's what campaigns are all about. But if you ask the other candidates, all the other candidates can do is make promises. They don't have anything to show because the other candidates have no experience. Is as the most successful, the majority party in Cameroon cannot be frightened by a candidate, an aspirant who has never had the experience of winning an election, such as the name you mentioned, whether it's whoever he may be or she may be. So far, the CPDM has a record of doing better than they do, winning the elections, and they don't have that same record. But to say that they have crowds, sure, we saw this. We have the experience of, and may so rest in peace, the late Mr. John Frundi, who in 1992 used the same crowd factor to demonstrate his force. But he still fell short because to win an election is not just a question of crowd. The crowd element, the crowd parameter, the crowd factor is only one little element, because you can have a crowd, but the crowd may not even be registered voters. You may have a crowd, the crowd may not even be people of voting age. You may have a crowd, but the crowd may not even be Cameroonians.
And the President of the Republic made his first official campaign rally or outing in the far north region of Cameroon, precisely in Marua. Now, should Cameroonians still expect to see the head of state in other campaign rallies?
I'm sure that the Cameroonians expect to see, they will see the head of state again after Marwa, because first of all, as we all know, President Biya believes in democracy. He is, I call it the father of democracy in Cameroon, and he will continue meeting with Cameroonians because, first of all, by his own very nature and reflex, by his own very political philosophy, he's a humanist. He's a man who believes in human beings and believes in communing with human beings. And because he sees himself as human, and he extends his humanism to others, and so I am very convinced that you will see him in other outings, in other stops, rallying people, because as he himself said, the 2025 presidential election campaign is a campaign, as he himself said in his circular, and as he has instructed us who are his campaign agents for his campaign in the CPDM, this 2025 presidential campaign is a campaign of rallying people, it's a campaign of convincing people, it's a campaign of modernity, and it's a campaign of physical contact. Physical contact. You have to go meet people, talk with them in all your elegance and in all your decency.
Elvis NGOLE, political scientist and equally a CPDM militant. Thank you so much for your time. And that's what put a cap to today's edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your keen attention. Stay in the company of Serge Alain Otto and his guest of the program, Chemin Day to Day. Have a wonderful evening. Bye-bye for now.